captain at 23, 227 games, 13 goals, captain no less of the famous Intertoto Cup winning team of 1999. What an honour to have Steve Lomas here in the studio with us. Hello, Steve.
Thanks very much, and possibly the worst trophy ever. Great time it was for us, but they handed me the trophy and I thought it was my individual medal. I was waiting for the big trophy to come, but it never did. It was like, so we called it the Egg Cup, so it was very underwhelming, the trophy, to say the least.
I can't remember what it looked like.
Was it like a thin thing with gold? Literally,
we called it the Egg Cup. That's what it was. But no, it was very underwhelming, to say the least, and it took a lot of stick. I think they've still got it. I'm sure they have, but I think the lads were trying to break it in the changing room after the game because it was that poor.
I like the trophy cabinet so bare. That would definitely be that's the main thing.
Well, it's like one of the big trophies we've won in our lifetime.
In our lifetime. That's what we always go on about winning.
We always go on about winning the Intertoto Cup.
It was a great experience, but I don't go on about it too often. I got to say.
I remember at the time it was I think it was the Mets was the final, and my brother had just gone missing. I was with my nan, and my nan said, "Come on, you got to go outside and find your brother." I said, "No, Nan. West Ham are about to win the first trophy of my lifetime. I'm sitting here and watching this, and there it is."
And Chris's brother was never found.
So if you're listening, do call home.
No.
Do call home.
Be nice to hear from you.
Well, Steve, let's begin. 1997, you're at Man City, and then Harry Redknapp picks up the phone.
Yeah, obviously Man City had got relegated the year before, and I was actually away on international duty. I think they tried to sell me to Wimbledon, which I didn't want to go to, but obviously I knew Ian Dowie was there, Michael Hughes, Keith Rowlands, so whenever it came up, and obviously always admired the way West Ham played, and Harry was a draw, and obviously Big Ian was very persuasive and said it would be a good move, and it was a great move in effect.
It's funny you mentioned Ian Dowie, obviously friends. Apparently he's quite a laugh, which surprised us.
No, he's a great lad. He's fantastic. He's larger than life, and I know he was a big character, not only in Northern Ireland's changing him, but West Ham changing him. We were very fortunate. I think that's why the first 5 years at West Ham were fantastic. We had the base of British seniors, guys in their peak, young guys like Frank Rio, Michael Carrick coming through, and then you had the touch of foreign class, Parlo Wanchop, Isle Berkovic, Stan Lazaridis, Freddie Canute, so it was endless. So I think Harry, especially in them first 5 years, got the blend between foreign and British, young and old, very right.
It was funny, I was reading the interview. Obviously, it must have been a big change. You were quite young when you came over from Northern Ireland to Manchester. But I understand you went to the Hacienda a couple of times in Manchester when you were in your time there.
Yeah, occasionally we went there. It was very Stone Roses, and Oasis obviously came on the scene after that there, and so it was big into the music as well. So it was great that the Oasis boys were Man City fans, and obviously we got free tickets and that there, which was great for a young lad. So occasionally. Not every week, I hasten to add, but occasionally I frequented the Hacienda, which is now long gone.
Did you get a chance to meet Noel and Liam?
Well, it's a funny story. I tell people this and they don't believe me. Noel's, I think it was his cousin Paul, owned a car valeting firm, and they came and cleaned the cars. So Noel was actually cleaning cars.
Oh, was he?
Before he made it big in Oasis. So it goes to show you, he's obviously followed his dreams and got away from Shammy and Peter Reid's car, and the rest is history.
So when you arrive in London, what kind of night? We were chatting outside about some of the nights for swapping Hacienda for possibly Charlie Chan's.
Charlie Chan, Wolf from Stoke Dogs.
I thought you were going to come and talk about football, but
well, we will get into it.
But no, listen, I was very lucky. I had Michael Hughes and, like I say, Keith Rowlands, and Ian lived a little bit out. He was a bit posher. He lived out in Harpenden, but the lads like Hughesy and Keith Rowlands showed me the sights, Kenny Brown, so I wasn't struggling for a partner in crime.
Yeah.
So you become captain of West Ham at 23 years old, and obviously some big characters around, like John Hartson, I think Ian Wright, Neil Ruddock, same kind of era of you. So what do you think was it that Harry saw in you that made you captain at that age?
I think he's seen me long term. Being there, I was 23. He's seen a winner he was a bit petulant at times, and maybe he did it to sort of try and calm me down a little bit and give me a bit of added responsibility to say, listen, Stephen, I love the way you are as a character, I love your will to win, but we got to keep you on the pitch. So so I think, listen, it was a bit of that, and I think he realised there was a lad that wanted to train hard and wanted to win every week, and he hoped, obviously the lads would respect that, and he knew I also organised a good party or two. So, listen, I like to think he's seen something in me, and I'm very honoured that he did. There's some great people have captained, West Ham, Bobby Moore, the greatest, Billy Bonds. So for me to sort of follow that is, it's a great thing for me to be able to tell the grandchildren.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. We've spoken a lot actually recently about captains, and especially over the last few years when you've had, your Lucas Neils and Matthew Apsons and Kevin Nolan. And now Noble, what do you see your role as captain, like on the pitch?
I think you've got to set example in training as well. I think, to go out there and, I couldn't turn it off and on. I'd have to train properly, and I think Harry's seen that, setting a good example in training, wanted to win every training session, but we had a lot of characters that did, Johnny Archer, you name one, wanted to win, just as much. So I think I wouldn't say it was easy, but they certainly helped with them characters like that there. John Moncur, Dixie. Unfortunately for me, Dixie had a really bad knee injury, and I didn't really get to play with him, which is a shame because Dixie was a fantastic player. Yeah.
And I was thinking about your position at West Ham. I mean, you kind of played all over, really. Harry Redknapp usually in all kinds of. Yeah. Where do you think you were best?
Oh, I think I first started off as a box-to-box midfielder, where Brian Horton wanted me and Gary Flitcroft to share the load and get in the box and nick a goal or two. But obviously that changed when Harry came along. We had people like Isle Berkovic, Paolo Di Canio, Trevor Sinclair, so he wanted me to hold a little bit more. So I think that was my best position. But I think where it was good for Harry probably hindered me a little bit, because if there was injuries, he knew he could do a job at right back. Yep. He knew he could do a job at right side centre half in a 3. He knew I could play right wing back. So I suppose now I've been a manager, it's a dream when you've got a player like that there. You know that you can get a performance out of him in different positions, from week to week. But I think from a personal point of view, it probably didn't help me too much.
Did you get on with Harry generally?
Yeah, listen. We had our ups and downs. Contrary to what people is, he's fiery. I'm fiery. But I think, listen, the good thing about Harry he wouldn't hold a grudge. You'd made a mistake. You'd have a go, and then all would be forgotten. It'd be right. Come on, let's get back to business. And I think that's a very good trait in a manager to have, because you've only seen, even you look at the greatest manager like Jose Mourinho, you can't fall out with players, unfortunately, because there's too much power in their place nowadays.
So first season when you joined West Ham, we're in a bit of a relegation scrap, and you kind of arriving at the club as the beginning of a resurgence. So what was the atmosphere like in the changing room when you turned up? No,
it was great. I think, listen, more to the point, we stayed up because Paul Kitson and Johnny Hartson came in and scored goals. I played a small part, but nowhere near what them two guys did. I think he scored 15 goals between them and were sensational. And it was I think that's another good thing that Harry had, that he took players that other people probably just weren't willing to take a risk on, and paid a lot of money for John and paid a lot of money for Paul Kitson, and was somewhat given stick for doing that, but they kept us up, and then it led on to 4 or 5 great seasons. So it was, that was instrumental for me. But yeah, listen, it was great that to come in and then to stay up, because I'd really been relegated with Man City, and the last thing I wanted to do was come to another club and go down again. And like we've seen, the Premier League is the only place to be.
Yeah. And that must be quite, from having just been relegated, like having that experience must be invaluable to a team to kind of, to guide people away from it in a way, because nobody wants to get relegated. Well,
I think we had a good team. We had decent players. Slaven was there, Mark Reaper, Johnny Moncur, Ian Bishop, Tim Breaker, Stevie Potts, Stan Lazaridis, Michael Hughes, but the team weren't scoring goals. And as you've seen, teams that can't score goals normally struggle. You look at even the game, dare we say it, yesterday, Swansea were the better team, but unfortunately at the minute they can't score goals, and that's why they're struggling, and that was probably a bit like West Ham that season until John and Paul came along.
In terms of your debut season, one game that sticks out in particular, 4-3 against Spurs on a windy night under the floodlights at Upton Park.
I don't think I played.
Really?
I don't think I'd signed by then. I haven't been honest. I'd like to take credit. I think Big John Hartson, I do remember, because I think I signed 2 weeks later.
Oh, right.
And I do remember Big John giving Saul Campbell a terrorising of his life where he went off at half time. The game that sticks out that season, not wanting to jump on, was I think we beat Sheffield Wednesday 5-1 at home, and
Kitson,
Kitson again. Paul, I think he got a brace, but it was an all-round team performance. I knew then that we probably were going to stay up. You know, we went away and won at Leicester, nicked Johnny Munker, I think it came off his shin. We won 1-0 at a very tough place to go, and unfortunately we were safe by the time we went to Man United on the last day, because that would have been the last place you want to go to try and get a result. But I think we had done the job over the sort of 7-8 games that I'd been there.
Yeah. Season 97-98, much better story. And including a goal for yourself, probably my favourite goal you scored, I think Man City away in the FA Cup.
Yeah, no, we were on a good run, and I think that was really my year to lift the FA Cup. We eventually got beat by Arsenal in the quarter-finals, but we should have beat them with obviously Dennis Bergkamp getting sent off, went to penalties, and unfortunately we got knocked out. But Wolves were in the semi-finals and Newcastle in the final. No disrespect, Wolves were in the league below. Yeah, we would at least got to the final, and I think we would have beat Newcastle. We were a better team. So that was a really sore one in terms of, because teams like West Ham, like you've seen at the Liverpool game, you don't get too many chances, do you? And so from that point of view, it was soul destroying. But yeah, to go back to your question, I think Man City away, it was great. We know we beat Blackburn the tie before in penalties, and we're on a good run. To go away to my former team and to score the winner was fantastic. And I really thought it was our year that year, but unfortunately we came unstuck.
Arsenal stitched us up on several fronts that year, didn't we?
They lost the League Cup as well.
League Cup, and we didn't qualify for Europe, I think, because they lost a match they should have won, in the final game of the season. So I think we didn't get into Europe as well.
So hopefully they lose tonight.
There's a triple stab in the back of Arsenal.
But I think the FA Cup, growing up as a kid, the FA Cup was, unfortunately, it's been slightly diminished. But for me, as a kid growing up, I always dreamed, ever since I watched Norman Whiteside come inside and curl that one into the far corner, I always dreamed of lifting the FA Cup. And I always remember my youth team manager Tony Book saying, when he was working with the first team and I'd broken through, he said, listen, you don't get too many chances in the cup. If you're lucky, you maybe get once, twice in a lifetime. And that was certainly a chance. So it was, that hurt for a long time, because I remember part of that game, I think Tony Adams hit the worst penalty I've ever seen, because Bernard Lama was in goal, and Bernard actually dived to the right, and it was almost, I think he almost double hit it. I don't think it barely made the back of the net, because Bernard dived to the right, got up and nearly saved it. Because I remember watching it, because I actually had to take one to keep us in it afterwards. And I remember thinking, God, how has he got away with that? Yeah. And but like you say, it was just meant to be their night.
Yeah, I think, was it Abu who missed?
I think Ayalans, Berkovic, I think Samasi both missed.
Yeah,
I didn't fancy Samasi. I couldn't understand why he was going up. But
is it actually a case of who puts their hands up for the pens?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it's who fancies it. Obviously, the boys that had taken one at Blackburn, myself being, so. But it was. I actually didn't fancy Isle either, to be fair. I always, because he was one of them. He placed it, and you always thought, well. But no, it was that. Normally I can get over games pretty quickly, but that really smarted for a while.
Funny penalty shootouts, because we'd won one, hadn't we, earlier in that round, like you say, Blackburn. I think you got the winning. You scored the winning penalty.
We had gone away another. We hadn't had an easy run. That's why I thought, this is going to be us to go away to Blackburn and win, go away to Man City and win. You felt it was all on. Obviously, Arsenal had the one sent off, and you're thinking, come on, this is our year. We knew that Wolves would have been in the semi-finals, so you're thinking, never a greater incentive. So that, and I think obviously the League Cup with the Manny on the menu thing, which poor Manny, I do feel sorry for him. He was pretty much hung out to dry. But
I bet he was.
But they were the two opportunities, but the FA Cup's the one you want to win.
Yeah. Word on Omar Yimney. So did you have a word with him when he?
I think, listen, everybody didn't blame Manny. You know what I mean? But on the other end of the fact, you thought he would have held his hand up and say, "Listen, lads, you know what? I played in the League Cup, but unfortunately, some people lost their jobs over it, which was harsh. It was just one of them." People say it can only happen at West Ham, and you're probably right. But to obviously get to the semis and then have to go back and replay it was harsh.
Yeah. Oh. Although didn't I say it only happened at West Ham? Didn't it happen at Real Madrid very recently?
Yeah,
did it?
Yeah, indeed.
I think like last week or the week before.
Another reason why us and Real Madrid are such similar.
There you go. Well,
yeah. In terms of characters around that time, John Hartson, for what did you think of that man?
Listen, John was a great lad. He was part of their little golf clique. Him, Kittle, and Johnny Monks, Razor, Ian Wright. We actually got Ian Wright started in golf. He's very keen golfer now and very good golfer, but at the time he was useless. And he nearly got me chucked out of my first golf club, West Essex, for a story I probably can't repeat over air. But listen, we had some great characters, and I think we all got on really well. It was pretty much a family club. Everybody mucked in together. The training ground was an open door. Anybody could come in. You see what under lock and key nowadays, and but it was pretty much we always had people in walking around, and we were going, "Who's that?" I don't know. But I think the fans, especially in the first 5 years, they bred into they knew the lads were having to go week in, week out, and if they got beat, they'd have a go. And I think, I always think you can see a club on the up when the fans and players, are mingling. Nowadays it doesn't happen as much, and I think that's it's a sorry thing that it doesn't. Plenty of open days. Everybody has an open day. I always laughed every day at the West Ham training ground was an open day. You could come and go as you please. People getting signed things, signed that. It was. But listen, I think that's what added to it. It added to the chemistry that we were a family club.
Yeah. Well, one man, John Moncur, open training grounds.
Yeah.
A lot of nudity on display.
Yeah, and for a man that's, shall we say,
not packing.
You said that, not me.
We've heard.
Yeah, but nah, listen, John was brilliant, and listen, he's still a very good friend of mine today.
Yeah.
And but there was never a dull moment. You had to be on your guard. Not just him. There was Ian Dowie. There was lots of people willing to play a prank. So like I said, you had to be on your guard, day in, day out. I hear about the Wimbledon thing, cutting up clothes, but that was the least of the misdemeanours at this place.
Really?
And some that can't be, unfortunately, divulged over air. They're probably more better for a bar and a few beers.
Yeah, or an autobiography, a tell-all.
That would be a good one.
We've had everyone who's come on from that era. Everyone has a Moncur story. Mainly him getting naked.
Just what about the nickname Maggot? I mean, can you confirm or deny that?
I can confirm. I can confirm.
98-99, you say like all these characters, but you're doing the job on the pitch because we finished fifth that year. I mean, what a season that was. Everything seemed to come together.
Yeah, and if our away form had been a bit better, we could have got a bit better. But I think, listen, I think the first 3 seasons, especially at home before the big stand was built, it was a very intimidating place to come to. And nobody wanted to come, and especially under the lights. I used to love playing there. I used to hate playing there when I was with Man City because the crowd were right on you. But it was such an intimidating place for the away team to come because the crowd were on you, and giving you a nice bit of verbals, and it definitely put some teams off coming there.
Yeah.
That's interesting to know. So, when the West Stand went, did it really change? Like the old stand, did it really change the atmosphere?
It took a little bit away because, to be fair, it needed to go because that stand was a fire hazard. But you're right on top. It was right close. And them little grounds, QPR is very similar. That 25,000 can sound like 45, 50, and what. When we were playing well at the time, so obviously the crowd were up for it, and they knew that they were coming to the home games. We had goals in us.
Yep.
We had Trevor Sinclair come in, Johnny Arts and Paul Kitts, and Parlow then followed. We had people that could score goals and excite. Parlow Wanchop, another one who took a little bit of criticism. I thought it was a little bit unfair. I thought Parlow did really well for us, and then Freddie Canuti. So they were coming there, and there's players there to excite the crowd, and obviously we had the old battlers like me who tried to keep it showed up at the back. So, but listen, it certainly was a great time the first 3-4 years.
It's fun, so your style very much was like showing that grit and determination and, clearly training hard, and that was maybe your role as captain. So you get these foreign players come in, and like DiCanio, some of the others. Was that part of your job as well in training to say you need to be like on it all the time? Well,
I think they had to understand that, ain't just about with the ball, especially when you're going away from home and, it's very tough. You're not probably going to get as much possession as you want. That way, and that's maybe sometimes to a detriment. People like Isle, who was fantastic at home.
Yeah.
But it was very hard, and I can understand being a manager myself now. Isle might score one and create two at home, and then you're going away to Everton, and with the greatest will in the world, it's going to be a battle, and you ain't going to have much possession, and maybe people like Isle can then become a passenger, but it's very hard for a manager to leave him out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was what was needed. We needed to be maybe a little bit more, solid away from home and not be as open. I think that's why our away form probably suffered more, obviously, than our home form.
Something else that's emerging around this time at the club is obviously this generation of great players coming through. Rio, Frank, Joe Cole, Carrick. Were you looking around thinking, we could be really challenging for stuff?
I think you're looking around. I think that's a defining moment when we sold Rio, which was an awful lot of money, and I can understand why. But I think it was a defining moment. We certainly, that year where Harry eventually lost his job, I think that played a big part in it. Rio went, and to lose somebody like that there, and I think, not wanting to upset, I think it was better for Rio. He needed to leave London. He needed to go and mature, and maybe being around London, it was too easy to go out with his mates, and and I think it certainly helped him. But for us as a club, it probably signalled give over a bad sign that these young players coming through could be eventually got, and for a lot of money. But unfortunately, the players that actually came in didn't really fulfil, Rigobert's song. Great lad, Songy, but just didn't really step up. Titi Kamara, who had showed signs at Liverpool of being a decent player, really struggled. Really struggled, and Mark Vivian Foe probably was the best out of the three of them. Unfortunately, Mark sadly passed away. Another great lad, three decent lads, but for whatever reason, that probably confounded it. The three lads that came in, struggled.
Well, the start of that 2000-2001 season, as we discussed at the start, was one of the proudest moments of our West Ham supporting career, the Intertoto Cup run, which we'd love to talk about now.
Bob.
So, I mean, the start of that season, you're back in pretty early. Do you think that had an impact on what happened?
I think, we hit the ground running. There's no two ways. We had some tough, some tough games, competitive games, whereas normally the last couple of games of your pre-season is competitive, but we had been there home and away at different places, and I think that's why we started the season very well. We were up to match fitness earlier than most other teams.
Any memories of FC Jokerit or Heerenveen?
Yeah, I remember them. The dementia's not kicking in too bad, but listen, it was a great atmosphere, and I think the fans really enjoyed it because obviously they had their little trips away, and someone went for 3 or 4 days rather than a couple. Some of them went for a week, but the Mets was a great final really, and I think who was up front for them? A young
Sahar,
young Louis Sahar. I think he actually scored.
Yeah, I think we lost the first leg.
Yeah, we lost 3-2.
Yeah, and
for a Sahar goal.
Exactly. But listen, he showed signs then he was going to be a good player. So, but no, it was better than the normal mundane pre-season. You'd go to Scotland, you'd have a couple of lower games, and then you'd kick in with maybe a foreign game. So the lads really enjoyed it because telling Aston, he'd rather play football than train.
Yeah.
The long runs and stuff like that there. So from that point of view, and the little trips away, which were nice, you're not stuck in the one training ground, as luxurious as Chadwell Heath is. So we got to visit some nice countries and really enjoyed the opposition.
How much on those smaller teams? How much kind of work would Harry put into knowing them?
I think
was there any kind of
you get some
any kind of scouting network?
Yeah, you get some videos and you'd have a look. But listen, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
The people like Jokovic and that there. So, but I think Harry was very much of the mindset. I think he wanted more for us to look after ourselves, know what we're good at.
Yeah.
And then if we get beat, rather than worry about the opposition. Just worry about us, trying to perform, and if we do, we'll get the job done.
The final against Metz away, we come back to win. Some West Ham fans say that's one of the greatest nights of their West Ham supporting career. Like, genuinely, as an away game, it was a hell of a perforpance to come back.
Yeah, no, it was. It was a very good. I think Frank scored, didn't he? Did Frank score? Longman Ranger.
One chop scored.
Yeah, Parlow scored. I think them West Ham fans have been on the beer though for about 4 or 5 days. So nah.
Listen,
I think it was a really good performance, if I remember rightly, and I think we had good support there. Obviously West Ham hadn't been in Europe for a long time. So it was great. A lot of these fans, like you're saying, experienced it for the first time, and I think they certainly made the most of it, to say the least. Yeah,
but as you've kind of touched on, it all kind of fell apart at the end of the season. We finished 15th, and Harry Redknapp goes. What are your memories of finding out that news?
Well, unfortunately, through that season, I think I was going to move the back to Man City or Everton, if I remember rightly, and then I tore my posterior cruciate around, I think it was around the November time, and obviously was finding it hard to get back, and obviously went away, had an operation with David Dandy, and then obviously Rio went. And we just fell over the line, but it was a big shock, because I think Harry had earned the right to have a little blip.
Yeah.
And but that being said, obviously Glenn then came in and we finished 7th the year after. So, but I think Harry had earned the right to have a bit of a blip, and the other thing as well is if Terry Brown, who was the chairman at the time, didn't have to accept the bid for Rio.
Yeah.
But I do think it was a significant thing in West Ham's period that it sort of signalled that we were a selling club.
Yeah, it was huge from our point of view, wasn't it? Like selling off the silverware.
Yeah, that's what they referred to.
Yeah, it was massive.
Yeah, I think as well, not just that there, Rio was such a influential player because his pace at the back could get him out of trouble, could cover his partner. Unfortunately, we lost Slaven the first year there. We had Mark Reaper. Rio was ideal for the way Harry wanted to play, 3 at the back and come out with a ball. So he was a big miss, and like you're saying, selling off the crown jewels from a fan's point of view. West Ham, like Man City, always wanted young players coming through. They've always had good academies, and the fans can identify with the young kids. They know that they're given everything, and so that I think that was the biggest disappointment from the fans' point of view.
There's a lot of talk about youth coming through now, or the lack of youth coming through now. What do you think? Do you think West Ham were lucky at that time just to have those players come through, or do you think it's a?
I think it's a bit of everything. I think the scouting network, wasn't Tony Carr. Listen, has done brilliant. There's no two ways. But all his staff, the scouting, when you look at what's come through that era, it'd be very hard to keep replicating that. Rio, Frank Lampard, Michael Carrick, Joe Cole. Obviously, we signed Jermaine Defoe, but still a young player from Charlton. Played compensation. So Glenn Johnson, another one. You look at the class at Man United. they still struggle to find a period of the Beckhams and that they're coming through. It's very hard, and yeah, luck plays a part of it, but also a lot of good work from a lot of people. You're watching all the scouts, watching grassroots football, seeing the best talent around at West Ham. I think players realising that West Ham is a good place to come and develop, and if you do, you'll get an opportunity, which you can't say that's with a lot of Premier League clubs now. But I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but like you say, to keep replicating, there you go. So you've got 6 lads that have made probably, must be talking about 600-700 games for England. That's going to be hard to keep replicating that year after year.
Yeah. In terms of Terry Brown, did you meet him at all?
We met. Obviously Terry was very low key, but I had a couple of meetings with Terry. He was okay. I got on well with him. I thought he did a good job as well under the circumstances, but I think that was when we finished 5th. We thought if we pushed on, if we went and bought 2 or 3 really, really top players, we could have kicked on. But I think Terry didn't want to stretch the club and put them into financial difficulty, because he had them periods of being sort of touch and go relegation, going down to the second division and then back up to the Premier League. So he was always mindful of that. But it's a catch-22 in it. You're doing well. For a club like West Ham, it was only getting 25,000 at the time. How much do you push?
Yeah.
And that was the dilemma, to finish 5th, and then we didn't really go and strengthen too much, I thought.
So Harry goes out the door. In comes Glenn Roeder, who had been a coach, so I presume you're familiar with him. How did you get on with Glenn?
Yeah, listen, I like to think I got on with a lot of people. I was still injured from the knee operation, so obviously Glenn came in and he bought a few players. I think he bought Don Hutchison, Thomas Repke, David James. So I think the season started okay, and I think I came back around, I think it was a Charlton game where Kittle scored a hat-trick, 4 each, and unfortunately I played against Tottenham and somebody stood my toe and spiral fractured my toe, so I was out for another 3 months. So it was becoming a bit of a disaster season, but thankfully I came back tail end of the season and was able to, I think, contribute. I think it was actually my best goal scoring ratio over a period of 12 games. I think I got about 4 or 5 goals, and we ended up finishing 7th. So I was delighted to come back and be able to contribute a decent finish again.
Yeah. What time have you got to go, by the way?
I'm about 5:30.
5:30? All right, wicked. Right, cool. Okay, so Roeder's first season, very successful, essentially. Finished, I think, was it
7th?
Yeah. Listen, it was touch and go, and right all the way up until probably January, February time. We're in that sort of mid to bottom thing, looking over his shoulder. But then obviously I think March time we put on a really good spurt, and finished the season well, took good points. I think the last sort of 10 games I think we were top 6 for him, so it was a good end of the season.
And what's the difference in style between someone like Harry and someone like Glenn? I mean, from a fan's point of view, they're chalk and cheese.
Yeah, I think, Glenn's, he can have a laugh and a joke, but he's a little bit more serious in terms of demeanour. Yeah. Probably doesn't have laughing and joke in the thing, but doesn't mean he's any less incompetent at his job. So I got on well with both of them. I think ultimately, Roy Keane, says, managers get too much credit when they're doing well and too much stick when they're not doing well. Yeah. Because ultimately it's about the players that go out on the pitch. And I think we had good senior players there. Christian Daly was still there, and myself, and we had Parlow, Jermaine was coming through, Michael Carrick coming through, Trevor Sinclair. So we still had Freddie Canuti, so we'd still had decent players that could go out there and contribute. But listen, you can't take that away from me. Glenn gets a lot of stick at West Ham, and to finish 7th and then to get relegated on 42 points, a record high. Yeah. Very, very unlucky. Yeah. 42 points probably gets you 12th, 13th.
Well, what's Alderzola? What did we stay up with? 34.
Yeah.
So it goes to
How
show.
bad the league was.
It goes to show you the perception. Sometimes, Gianfranco's still revered by something, but
I know.
He stayed up in 34 points. Glen got 42 and got relegated. I think the key problem that year when we got relegated, we started the season with just 3 strikers, and Glen wanted to buy Marcus Stewart as a 4th striker, because obviously you had Freddie, who was beginning to get a bit injury prone, and Parlo was getting on in years.
Yeah.
And young Jermaine had done his best work off the bench, and Sod's Law, we didn't get Marcus as a 4th choice striker, and we ended up, I think, losing Parlo and Freddie for about 15 games at the start of the season. And really, I think to a point where Big Ian Pearce was playing up front with Jermaine. Yeah. And I love Big Pearce, he's a great lad, okay for 1 or 2 games, but we struggled because ultimately we went from having Parlo and Freddie. Parlo who could Freddie who could hold it up and you get the ball into Parlo, and he's liable to create you a goal or 2. And it certainly affected young Jermaine as well, because he was still learning the game, and all of a sudden he had to play up front, try and lead the line himself when he had done his best work coming off the bench, and he needed another season of doing that there. And so that was a big mistake, I think, from maybe not from Glen's point of view, but from the club not sanctioning Marcus Stewart, because Marcus had a great season with Ipswich the year before. When we had finished 5th, he had scored quite a few goals, and then they got relegated, and he would have been a good signing. He would have been, because he could hold it up, and we had lost that ability with Freddie Knutti being out.
It's so frustrating, these little tiny moments that could have made such a difference.
Yeah, also it's like when we had David Sullivan on the other week at the start of the season, and he said that under Avram Grant, when we went down to give him credit, they didn't spend any money, and they should have spent money in January.
Well, I think, listen, in
same way with Glen, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I think in Avram's point of view, I think Glen had spent some money, but we were talking the grand scheme of things. We were talking about $1.5 million for Marcus Stewart, and maybe the whole deal might have cost $4 million over the thing. On the grand scheme of things, it was a mistake. And listen, from the club's point of view, they thought Trevor Sinclair could be your 4th choice, because Trevor doubled up front, but Trevor came back from the World Cup and really struggled, I think, at fatigue, because he had played had a good season, played really well for England in the World Cup, and came back, and he just looked like shot for the first 6 months of the season. So it was a mistake. It was very short-sighted, because you need 4 strikers in the Premier League, in my opinion.
Yeah. In terms of players we did bring in, I want to talk about Thomas Repka, because I always imagined you'd be quite friendly. You had similar kind of styles. I imagine you'd both be equally as terrifying.
Than Thomas. I'll tell you a story about Thomas. See, I was coming back, funny enough, after me broken toe. And the ball's got played into the front man, and I'm coming back to try and nick it off the front man's foot, and Thomas is, instead of just standing up, he's absolutely careered through the geezer from behind, and as I'm running back, he's took the geezer out and he's come straight through and 2-footed me. I'm like, oh, Thomas, I've just come back from 14 months and 2 injuries. I said, do me a favour. But Thomas was a nice guy. His strength was his weakness. He was a great guy, trained, model professional. But just, I was surprised, because he had played in Italy. I thought he would be a cunning defender. He'd be a bit sneaky.
Yeah.
An odd pinch, an odd back here. No, he was the polar opposite. He liked to show the referee he was hurting the player. But he was a super lad.
When he first joined, I think he got sent off several times in a row. Did anyone have a word with him?
He got 2 yellows, didn't he?
Yeah. Listen, we were constantly have a word with him, but he just knew one way, and when the old red mist went, that was him. He was there was no rationale. There was no trying to say, Thomas, calm down. It was just open up, let the bull out, and that's what it was. But
I remember he got a yellow card, didn't he, and then kept going at ref and kept going and got another yellow card straight away. Remarkable.
He was a great lad, but like I say, once the red mist descended, there was no pulling him back.
It was emotion, wasn't he? Guided by emotion. He cried, didn't he, on his final match?
Game, which was surprising. It's funny, when you first joined the club, you're captain of kind of these British players, like you say, like Hartson, Ruddock, right? But then, like this era, you're having to keep an eye on like your Repkas, Di Canios, Canutes. What was that much more of a challenge, or was it? How was it?
No, No, because we had Stuart Pearce had come in as well at that time. Pearcey had come in, and Nigel Winterburn had come in.
Yeah.
And I thought Nigel, they should have given Nigel another year. He was 38. I think he was 37 when he came to us, and when he stripped off, he had the worst body I've ever seen as a professional athlete, right? But I tell you what, that geezer could train. Yeah. He was, and I said, Nigel, why don't you just take it easy? And he goes, no, Steve, he said, I've got to train how I play. He said, I'll be useless. Yeah. And every day he'd go out there, and he'd only be out there an hour, but it'd be like an FA Cup final. And I used to look at him and just laugh. He'd be in the shower and I'd look at his body. I said, you've got the body of a 56-year-old. I said, but every time he used to go out there, he'd play like an 18-year-old with enthusiasm. And I thought it was a mistake to get rid of him. I thought he deserved at least another year.
Yeah.
Did he get him and Di Canio when he signed? Obviously, there'd been a bit of previous with those two.
Look, listen, I think that would have been the worst fight in living history. Don't think that would have been box for you, would it? It would have been get your hankies out and wave. Both of them have been waving their hanky before it started. But listen, they were fine. Okay, listen, Parlow was Parlow. He was emotional at times, but listen, he was brilliant at times. There's no getting away from it.
Is it difficult being like captain people like Paolo, because there was lots of rumours that he didn't like travelling away to any away matches and he didn't turn up for those? So is there it must be frustrating as a professional like yourself who like sweats blood and tears?
It was frustrating the time he caught the ball up at Everton. I thought Stuart Pearce was going to 2-foot him, but so we had a chance to go and I think win 2-1. Trevor crossed it, and to be fair, it wasn't a given. I think
there was some defenders.
It was Paul Giard had hurt himself coming out, goalkeeping. The ball had fallen to Trevor and he crossed it. And I think, but Parlow being Parlow, he was fantastic at volleying.
Yeah,
he's brilliant. One of the best volleyers I've ever seen. Him and Clive Allen. And we fancied him. And I remember when he caught it, I think he got Sportsman of the Year, didn't he?
FIFA award.
FIFA award. I think Piercy went 3 different colours of purple. All he was worried about was his win bonus. And I thought in the changing room, I think we all sort of said, well done, Parlow, but I think there was quite a few of us thinking, just put it in and then worry about it, But listen, Parlow was genius at times. He was superb, unbelievable ability, right up there. And you just wonder how he never played for Italy more often than not. I suppose, listen, when you've got Baggio in your position, it's tricky. It's tricky, isn't it? But unbelievable talent. He was unbelievable at head tennis, but he never headed the ball. He had the best volley I've ever seen over his shoulder. How he got his leg up there. He must have, I think he was doing yoga or something, but he's fantastic flexibility and volleying, but at times he was frustrating, to say the least.
That comparison made me think of if you got Baggio in your position, it's like when Mascherano couldn't get in ahead of Mullins.
Very similar. Very similar.
Well, he struggled a little bit though, didn't he, at the start? Because he played a few games and you're thinking, he doesn't really look Argentinian, does he? And I think Hayden had done well, but I can see the irony.
We should talk about the relegation season. Obviously, going down with that team, crazy, really.
Yeah. Well, I think the second half of the season we were top 7 for him. We had really picked up, but the mistake was certainly going in with 3 strikers, and we paid dearly for that. But to get relegated with 42 points was, and a lot of things went against us. For me, if you want to stay in the Premier League, you've got to score goals.
Summer of 03 then, so obviously traumatic time. Everyone's getting sold. Was there any danger of yourself?
I think the problem was because I had a hurt my ankle. I was having, I think, the last 10 games I must have had about at least 10, 12 injections. So I needed to clean up my ankle, and I think there might have been a chance that they wanted to get me off the wage bill, but unfortunately I'd had an operation that didn't go too well, and the 3 months turned into more like 8. I had to have it redone. The surgeon that performed that operation didn't do a good job, and I had to have it redone, and so something that I really should have been back, September at the latest, turned into, I think, February time. And by that stage, obviously, Alan Pardew was there.
And how did you get on with Alan Pardew?
Yeah, okay. at the start, I think. Obviously, new manager comes in. You're always thinking senior players. I was out injured, but I think I came back and helped us get to the playoff final. And unfortunately, we got beat, which was heartbreaking. So it was another year in the championship, and it was a make or break season.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we got up.
Yeah. A word on the second leg of that playoffs and the first season of the championship against Ipswich. Many would say one of the greatest nights at Upton Park. Big win as well.
Certainly. Well, Matty Evanton's probably one of the best goals Upton Park seen in many a year, and I think obviously coming from behind, great under the lights again, just everything that epitomised West Ham, high energy, attack, crowd got behind us and spurred us on, and we played some really, really good football that night. Unfortunately, we couldn't follow up in the final, which is about to steal your glory. Yeah. We unfortunately we had a few players got injured. Rufus Brevitt, and having to play people out of position. Hayden Mullins had to play right back against Wayne Routledge, and Stevie Bywater had to come in goal, and Stevie was a young goalkeeper making his way. So it wasn't ideal, and I think if there was ever a case that we peaked in the semi-final, we did.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the final was a poor spectacle, to say the least.
And memories of that second season, where because you stayed at the club right to 2005.
Yeah, I think I'd missed the playoff final that year. I tore my calf about 6 games before the end of the season, so I missed the sort of run-in. But listen, it wasn't another poor final, but we stole it in the end up. Got it in our favour. And listen, nobody, you ask the Crystal Palace fans, nobody will remember being a poor final.
Yep.
But listen, thankfully they got up, because you've seen what happens with teams that don't get back within them 2 periods. The Charltons, the Leeds,
there's lots of them down there.
Exactly, big clubs that like you said, the first season went down under Glenn. The players that had to leave, Glenn Johnson, Jermaine Defoe. Yeah. Thankfully, Michael stayed. All credit to him. Joe. So it was essential that we got back, and thankfully we did.
Yeah. And then so the following season marked the end of your time with West Ham. Alan Pardew. Well, how did that come about?
Listen, I had a year left, and we had a few different opinions, and I didn't want to stay there and be a squad player. I wanted to play. I had a lot of injuries, and I was 32 then. I could easily have stayed and stayed out another year. And in the back of my mind, I was tempted to, because I wanted to stay there for 10 years and maybe get a testimonial. There was a couple of really good hospices around the thing that I thought, if I get that, I can maybe donate it to them. A bit like what Big Niall Quinn had done. But obviously it wasn't meant to be, and but I wanted to play football, and I wanted to stay in London, so that sort of made the decision easy to go to QPR.
Yeah, but it's funny, like you were there 9 years, but there was not many players in that era who put in as many years as you did. It seemed to be quite a high turnover of players.
I think so, but I think you still had people like Ian Bishop that did 9.5 years, Johnny Monks did 9.5 years, Stevie Potts, what a legend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nearly 500 games. Timmy Breaker did 8 years. So, I think there was players that served the club well. Certainly a lot of players that served. Big Alvin, obviously before my time, Billy Bonds. So I think it's a club that you go to, and it's hard playing in front of them fans, because if you're not having a good time, they'll let you know. But equally, another thing is if you're having a go, they'll be behind you. And I think that's where the two clubs have been at, Man City and West Ham. Have had proper supporters where, through thick and thin, no matter what. There's no if you living around Stratford or whatever, if you're from a West Ham family, you're West Ham, you're not Man United, you're West Ham. And I think that's the way it should be, and that's why it's such a good club. You see, I go to the games now and you still see the mix of people, young, old. I think it must be the highest middle-aged men supporting the football club ever, But it's great. Listen, it was a thoroughly enjoyable time. I wouldn't change a thing, apart from the relegation, I think, and the FA Cup. Two things. So I would change 2 things.
And do you still go over there now?
Yeah, I still get over there occasionally, every now and again. So, listen, it's still the same great atmosphere. You just look at it and you think you wish you could be out there.
Yeah, I bet.
So,
Yeah. And what kind of reaction do the fans give you?
Listen, they've always been good to me, in terms of they always respected that I'd give it 100% no matter what. Even if I was playing bad, I'd still put it in and try and make my opponent have a difficult game. And listen, the good thing about it is the first 5 years were I think if you asked any West Ham period, I think it's still the most successful period in the Premier League in terms of finishes in a consecutive period. So and obviously let's not forget the Cup, the Egg Cup. So listen, wouldn't change a thing. It was just great time.
And if you obviously leaving Upton Park, if you had to pick one memory from your time there under the
there was that many. I think at home, I think for me it was being with a good group of lads that you could trust, and you knew that these lads would back you up. People like Razors, John Artsons, Johnny Monkers, Stevie Potts, great lads who give it their all, and thankfully we had a wee sprinkling of quality in terms of the Parlos and that world. And it's a joy to play when you look back and you think about some of the players you played with. You think, wow, I've been very fortunate to play with these lads and share changing room and obviously have the jokes and the stitch ups.